Nobody cares. Nobody cares. Next, baby. We're fucking flying through it. Oh, so good. So good. What on earth? You just did maintenance on this app and it doesn't even work. I don't know what the fuck is happening, but it is so fucking bright. Hello book lovers, welcome back to the channel. My name is Steph and in today's video we will be doing my August wrap up. If this is the first wrap-up that you are watching, I will leave the entire playlist of all of my month's wrap-ups linked down below. So if you want to check what I have read, what I have rated certain books, then please go and check out that playlist. I will also leave my Goodreads linked down below if you want to see what I am reading in real time and also get all of my ratings as I am reading books. The way that I do the wrap-ups on this channel is I do start with the books that I rated lowest. So we go from worst to best book that I read in the month. So I was able to read 28 books in the month of August. So without further ado, let's get into the August wrap up. So starting with the worst book that I read in the month of August, it's going to be The Need by Helen Phillips. This is a horror novel where we are following a mother with two young children who hears somebody in her house and she basically just has this need to protect her children from this intruder that comes into her house. This book sounded super interesting. It sounded like something that I would gravitate towards, but I was a little bit skeptical going in due to the poor reviews on Goodreads. And I have to say that I do agree with the low rating on Goodreads. I understand what the author was trying to say and the commentary that this novel is trying to make. I totally get that. But while I was reading this book, I kept thinking to myself that if I had to listen to this main character talk about her milk and how it is constantly pouring out of her any more times, I was literally going to throw this book across the room. If you need a drinking game and you are trying to get extremely drunk, I would 100% recommend this for the amount of times that she talks about her milk. If you took a shot, you would be absolutely hammered. And also with this book, if you are someone who is on the fence about having children and you are trying to find ways to lean your decision to a no, do not have children, I would 100% recommend reading this book, as the kids in this book were so insufferable. I truly just could not stand them, and I'm sure that that was very intentional, but I really just could not care to read any more about this woman's milk and her kids. So I did end up giving this a 1.5 stars out of 5. Then I read The Hike by Lucy Clark. This is a mystery and thriller where we are following four main characters. They are all friends and they all do yearly trips together. I think it's yearly trips. And this year, one of them decides that they want to, instead of go on an all-inclusive vacation, that they want to take a hike instead. So everything is going fine until there is a dead body that is discovered at the bottom of a ravine. This book didn't really work for me because I truly just never ended up connecting with any of the characters. I didn't really care or was invested in what happened to these characters, and I truly just was not invested in this story. I think that if you are new to mystery and thrillers, this would be a good option to start with, as it wasn't very hard to follow along with, and the story can be interesting if you are reading mystery and thrillers for the first time, but I just really never ended up connecting with the characters. There's also a trope in here that I absolutely despise in my mystery and thrillers, so it really just threw me off, and I hate when things always circle back to this specific reason for things happening, so I just really didn't have a good time with this one, and I ended up giving this one a 2 out of 5 stars. Then I read Aftermath by Kelly Armstrong. This I read for Tackle My TBR episode 3, so I will leave the episode linked down below if you want to get my full in-depth thoughts. I won't really talk about all of my feelings towards this book, but just know that this is a YA thriller. We are following our main character whose brother was involved in a school shooting. He was actually the school shooter, and we are following the life 3 years after that event of his sister and how she is now going to high school. Very quickly, I just have not been having the best luck with YA books, so I didn't absolutely love this. Again, if you do want my full in-depth thoughts, check out Tackle My TBR episode 3, because I do give you all of my thoughts and feelings as I am reading the book, but I did end up giving this one a 2.25 stars out of 5. Then following that, I will quickly also talk about another book that I read for that video, and that is The 10,000 Doors of January by Alex E. Harrow. This again I read for for Tackle My TBR episode 3, linked down below in the description. I did end up giving this one a 2.5 stars out of 5. I absolutely loved the idea of this book and the writing was absolutely beautiful, but I just found that the story was very, very slow paced and there was a lot of like telling without showing, I feel like. This is a like historical fiction with fantasy elements mixed in. We are following our main character, January, who is being taken care of by like one of her father's friends, and while she's at this man's mansion, she does stumble upon a door, and this is very much also a story about a like book within a book. So the premise definitely sounded like something I would absolutely gravitate towards, but again, my feelings on this was that it was just a very slow moving story, and I feel like the idea was a lot better than the execution. So again, I did give this one a 2.5 stars out of 5. Then I read Lady Tan's Circle of Women by Lisa C. So this is a adult historical fiction. We are essentially following our main character whose grandmother was a practicing midwife, and she has essentially learned a lot from her grandmother. All of these like traditional medicines and ways of treating certain diseases and infections. But this also takes place in a time where being a female physician was extremely frowned upon. I do believe it says that it is partially like a true story, or this is based off of a true story, which I actually did not know while I was reading it. We are also following our main character as she is set up into an arranged marriage, and while she's in this marriage, it is very frowned upon for her to practice what she knows and help all of the like young women that need a midwife. So this book was just very, very average for me. I thought that the writing was really well done, and I absolutely loved learning about old like Chinese medicine. I absolutely loved some of the remedies and some of the things that they were teaching me throughout the book. I did really enjoy learning a lot about like ancient Chinese medicine, but I felt like with a book like this, it just became extremely repetitive. There was so many like birthing moments and birth scenes, which obviously you can expect when you are talking about a midwife situation, but I just felt like it was just very, very repetitive. So I did end up giving this book a 2.5 stars out of 5. Then very quickly, I am going to talk about a duology that I read back to back. So the first book being House of Shadows and the second book being House of Secrets. I did rate these differently. I will give you my individual ratings on these, but I just figured it would be easier for me to talk about both of them at the exact same time, as I'm not going to be able to tell you what book 2 is about, as this is a duology. These are both by Darcy Coates, so they are pretty short horror novels. So the first book, we are following our main character, Sophie, whose family runs into financial issues and they are having like a lot of financial problems. So then there is this man, Mr. Argenton, who basically says that he can help the family out, but his only stipulation is that he wants to marry Sophie. So Sophie ends up going into his like very creepy mansion, and there is a marriage that takes place. This book gave me like exactly what I wanted from this book. Duology as a whole was a pretty solid duology. I had a very good time reading it. The audiobooks weren't too long. I believe the first one was like 7 hours, the second one was 6 hours, so you could read this duology quite quickly. I absolutely loved the gothic vibes of this book. I thought that there was so many like creepy elements, and a lot of the characters were very, very interesting. There was a lot going on in this mansion. So I think that you do get a little bit of everything for every type of horror lover. So you do get like the creepy house, you get like very creepy characters. You also get a different element as well, which I will not say because I feel like that would be a spoiler. But all around, I do recommend this duology. So the first book I did end up giving a 3.5 stars. I thought that it was a pretty solid horror book and something that you can get through very, very quickly. I didn't like the second one as much, so I did give the second one a 2.5 stars, which is why I'm talking about both of them now. I just felt like after the first one, we didn't really need a second one. I do realize that the first one does end on a cliffhanger, but I just felt like we didn't need the like conclusion that we got, so I didn't like the second one as much, but I still would recommend this duology, and I have really been getting into Darcy Coates lately. Then I read Everyone on This Train is a Suspect by Benjamin Stevenson. This is book 2 in the Ernest Cunningham series. We are following our same main character from book 1, and this is an adult mystery and thriller. We are essentially following a mystery that takes place on a train, so there are a lot of new characters that are introduced in this book. I won't really get too much into the plot, but these books are just really, really fun, and I really enjoyed the first one in this series. This author kind of does this thing where they like break down this wall with the reader. You are basically told everything that is going to happen in the story. The main character in the book is actually like personally speaking to you as the reader. So I absolutely love this so much in books. I think that it is like very well done. I think that Benjamin Stevenson does like a very good job with this. I did like the first one more than I did the second one, but if you are looking for like a new take on mystery and thrillers, I would highly recommend this one. And I ended up giving this a 3 out of 5 stars. Then I read The Husbands by Holly Gramazio. So this is a contemporary fiction novel with magical realism elements sprinkled into it. So we are following our main character, Lauren, who wakes up one day and realizes that she is married to a man, but she doesn't know anything about this man, and then realizes that if he goes into the attic, she gets a new husband every time a different husband goes into the attic. So we are following her life story as she is navigating all of these different husbands, all of these different lives, and this sounded so good. This is actually a buddy read that I did with one of my besties here on BookTube, Valisa, and I actually think that Valisa ended up DNFing this book. I don't even think that she finished it. We were literally chatting on Instagram and she was like, just tell me what happens at the end because I truly could not care. And I couldn't agree more. I did end up giving this book a 3 out of 5 stars because I really liked the concept and the idea behind this book, but I just felt like the execution again was just not there. And I also felt like I just did not care about this woman and her trying to find this like perfect husband. Once I spoiled the ending for Valisa, I also was like thinking this ending was so lackluster. Like I literally made it through the entire book just to get to that conclusion. So I was not very satisfied with this book, but I do think that the concept is really cool. I just felt like the execution was lacking a little bit. And again, I did give this one a 3 out of 5 stars. The next book I have here is The Vanishing Half by Britt Bennett. I finally ended up reading this book. I have had this book on my TBR, on my shelves for so long. This was a gift by one of my old friends here on BookTube, Hallie. So this is a historical fiction novel where we are following 2 twin sisters who grew up together in a Black community. They are both Black, but as they grow older, one of them chooses to live her life as white passing. Though it is following their stories, we do get flashbacks to when they were younger, and then we do get present day. So it is also a contemporary fiction as well. So this book I have a little bit of mixed feelings on. I feel like the problem with this book came from the audiobook. I feel like I really should have physically read this book. I think that the audiobook made the timeline of this book not feel very seamless. I thought that it was quite confusing the way that we were following like present day, then going back to the past, following the different characters. Which story am I following? Whose character is this? It just really didn't flow, and I think that that has to do with the audiobook, so I don't want to fault the actual book for this. I know that this book is loved by so many, and I feel like I need to give this book a second chance and actually physically read it because there were some very powerful moments in this book. I thought that this book was very emotional. I loved the conversations that this book was starting. I really enjoyed the story when I was actually in the story. It was just more so the like time jumps that really had me confused. So I do feel like I want to physically read this at some point, but I did end up giving this one a 3 out of 5 stars. Another book where I think that the audiobook just didn't allow me to fully connect with the story the way that I was expecting to, and that is A Study in Drowning by Ava Reed. This is a YA fantasy book. We are following our main character, Effie, who essentially, there is a lot going on in this book, but in short, she gets tasked with redesigning like a late author's mansion and estate. But when she does get there, a lot of people are very standoffish, and she does start like uncovering a lot of secrets and learning a lot of things. I absolutely loved the vibes of this book. I love books that take place in like mansions and that there are like secrets that need to be uncovered. So it was definitely giving me like dark academia vibes, but for some reason I was just so bored while listening to this book. I truly had to restart the audiobook, I think 3 different times, and I had gotten like pretty far into the book, and each time I just ended up caring less and less. I feel like I may try to read this again physically at some point. I truly do not know that I would even care about the story. I found that what was happening in this book was pretty predictable, to be honest. And yeah, I just didn't really love our main character in this book, so I did end up giving this one a 3 out of 5 stars as well. Then another pretty disappointing book, as I absolutely love this author and his books, and that is The Extrodinaries by TJ Klune. So this is a YA fantasy novel. We are following our main character, Nick, who is a very popular fanfiction writer. He writes fanfiction on these extraordinaries that are living in his world, and one day he actually gets to meet an extraordinary named Shadowstar, who he really admires, and after that meeting, he essentially makes it his life's mission to become an extraordinary, and that is what the book is about. Yeah, and this was just super disappointing to me, although I did end up giving this a 3-star, which is a fine rating. It's very average. I just felt like this book was super disappointing. I don't know, I was just expecting so much more from this. I was expecting so much more from TJ Klune and his writing. After reading this, I did go down this like rabbit hole of TJ Klune and very problematic things with him as an author. It just left a very bad taste in my mouth with everything surrounding the controversy with this book. And also I found that this book was full of like very cringy moments. Was reading so cringy. Like some of the jokes that were being told and like the comedic elements of this book just felt so juvenile that it was like almost cringy at points. So yeah, I did end up giving this one a 3 out of 5 stars. Then I read Chasing the Bogeyman by Richard Chismer. I truly do not have any words for my reading experience of this book. This was unlike anything I have ever read before. I think even on my Goodreads review said that I had to check about 50 times to make sure that this wasn't actually a true crime book, because it does read as if this is a true story and that this is true crime, but apparently it is 100% fiction, and it is just like a psychological horror that is supposed to read as a true crime. So this story basically takes place in a small town where girls end up going missing, and then all of a sudden their bodies start to be discovered, and the police believe that there is a serial killer amongst them, as the MO of all of these women's bodies are very similar. This book kept me engaged the entire time. Again, I have never read anything like this, so if you have read this and have other recommendations for me of books that are very similar to this, I would love to have you guys recommend me a book that is like this, because I had a very cool reading experience. I thought the story was told very well, and I really did enjoy the audiobook, so I did end up giving this one a 3.5 stars out of 5. Then I read 5 Survive by Holly Jackson. This is just the dust jacket. I have the book downstairs as I just finished reading it. This is a YA mystery and thriller where we are following a bunch of different high school students who end up wanting to take a trip to go to spring break, and they get this RV. So they do take a wrong turn. They end up on this like dead end road, and then their RV breaks down, and while their RV is broken down, they do end up getting threatened by like something out in the woods. And I don't really want to say too much more on the synopsis. I have read from Holly Jackson in the past, so I did decide to pick this up. As you guys know, YA hasn't been my absolute favorite lately, but I did think that this was like a solid YA mystery and thriller. If you are trying to get into like mystery and thrillers, this would be a really good one if you do enjoy YA. I thought that the story was paced really well. I did like the twist at the end. I liked how the author kind of brought everything together, but throughout the story, I did feel like Holly Jackson just wrote way too much description for things that really didn't need to be described. Like, I feel like she did a lot of telling instead of showing. Again, I feel like this book could have been cut down by at least 50 pages, because so many of the pages were just describing things that we really just did not need to know about. So I did end up giving this one a 3.5 stars out of 5. Then I read The Beautiful by Renee Audier. So this is a YA fantasy. There is a like mystery element going on in this as well. We are following our main character, Celine, who has to flee her life as a dressmaker, and she ends up joining this convent of women, and it does take place in New Orleans. Then women in this convent end up getting murdered, and there is a whole mystery as to what is happening with this specific convent. There is also a like romance that's happening in here as well. Yeah, this book took me completely by surprise. I absolutely loved the vibes of this book. I love that it takes takes place in New Orleans. I love the gothic elements of this. I love the reveals that took place in this book. The ending of this book kept me very, very intrigued to want to continue reading this series. The reveal that happens at the end is absolutely incredible, and I am very excited to continue with this series. And I did end up giving this one a 3.75 stars out of 5. Then I read The Raven Boys by Maggie Stiefvater. This is a YA fantasy. I also read this book for Tackle My TBR episode 3. Again, if you want my full in-depth thoughts, please check out my Tackle My TBR episode. So this is essentially following our main character, Blue, and Blue comes from a family of psychics. Blue has always been told that when she does kiss her one true love, that he will end up dying. And then we are also following a different storyline with the Raven Boys. So we are following 4 of the Raven Boys as they are on this journey to find something called ley lines. There is a lot more that goes into this book, but I think that going in kind of not knowing too much is the best way to go into this book. I had a very good time with this book. I did end up giving this book a 3.75 stars. I did really enjoy Blue's storyline. I didn't care too much about the main story that was going on, but I am very curious to continue on with this series. And again, I did give this a 3.75 stars. Then very quickly, another book that I read for Tackle My TBR episode 3. I can't even talk about it because it is the 3rd in a series, and that is Finale by Stephanie Garber. Again, this is the 3rd in the Caraval series. Again, if you want my full thoughts, please check out Tackle My TBR. I gave this a 4 star. I understand the problems that people have with this book, but I just absolutely loved the world that Stephanie Garber created, so I did give this a 4 star and had a very good time reading it. Then I read Beneath the Trees Where Nobody Sees Volume 3. This is by Patrick Horvath. If you have been around on my channel for a little bit, you know that I have been slowly making my way through this entire series. It is a very short horror graphic novel series. It is only 30 pages each volume. In this, we are following a female serial killer who is this brown bear. She lives in this town with all of these other like really cute animals. I think that this series is so underrated and not talked about, but it is so good, and I did end up giving volume 3 a 4 out of 5 stars as well. Then I read The Return of Ellie Black by Amiko Jean. This is a mystery and thriller where we are following a main character that is a detective, and this detective's sister has gone missing and has been missing for the last 20 years, I believe. And she goes to this town where a character by the name of Ellie Black also went missing, but then there is hope in this town because Ellie Black, after 2 years of being missing, returns, but there is clearly something like not the same with Ellie Black. So we are following the story, and it is 2 different POVs. So we are following the detective's POV, but then we do get glimpses of what happened to Ellie Black as we are following her own voice as she tells the story of what happened to her. I had such a good time with this. I really didn't have many expectations going into this book as I don't hear many people talking about it, but I was very pleasantly surprised with how much I truly, really did love this book. I thought that the audiobook was fantastic. It really like immerses you into the story, and this book very much surprised me by how dark it was. There are so many like dark themes that are happening. There is so much trauma that is happening in this book, and I just was not expecting this to be as dark as it was. For some reason, I was expecting it to be more so like leaning towards like a YA, but this deals with very dark topics. So if you are someone who is triggered, I would read trigger warnings for this, and I ended up giving this one a 4 out of 5 stars as well. Then I read Pachinko by Min Jin Lee. This is a historical fiction where we are following a Korean family through different decades of their life, and I really don't want to say too much more about this story. It is very heartbreaking. This book was about 500 pages, and while I was reading it, it did not feel that way at all. You truly get so immersed in this story. I am so happy that I finally decided to pick this up. I was very intimidated by this book, and I really don't know why, because this story was just absolutely beautiful. It was like stunning, breathtaking. I cannot say enough good things about this book. I had such a good reading experience with it. I thought that this book was super like heartbreaking, but the story was just so captivating. Again, if you are someone who gets triggered easily, I definitely would read trigger warnings for this. One right off the top of my head is there is so much racism that takes place in this book that it is just like very hard to read at times, but again, I think that it is so worth it, and I did end up giving this one a 4 out of 5 stars as well. Then I read The Last One by Will Dean. This is an adult mystery and thriller where I don't want to give you guys too much of the plot, but I also think that the synopsis doesn't really give you much of what this story is about. So we are following some characters who wake up on this cruise ship and they realize that every other member of this cruise ship is no longer on the boat. And that is kind of all I will tell you about this one. This again is one of those stories where it is quite outrageous, so you really do have to suspend your belief, but I think that the payoff in this book is so worth it. I had so much fun listening to this book. I thought it was entertaining from start to finish. I had no idea what this book was actually going to be about, and then once it is revealed what is going on, it is just so entertaining from there, and it just continues to get better and better as you read. And the ending of this book literally had my jaw on the floor. Like, I had to physically pick my jaw up off the floor because I was like, this author did not just do that. I am so intrigued to pick up anything else that Will Dean writes because this mystery and thriller is exactly what I like. I thought that it was just so much fun, and I highly recommend this, and I did end up giving this one a 4 out of 5 stars as well. Then I picked up Evocation by S.T. Gibson. This is an adult fantasy, and it's kind of hard to put into words what this is about, but just know that we are following 3 main characters. So we're following David, Reese, and Moira. And Reese and Moira are married, but they also have their own like separate chapters throughout the book. And David and Reese have been friends for a long time, but there was a falling out that took place between them. But then there's an event that takes place with David where he then needs to reach out to Reese, and the 3 of them have to work together in order to accomplish this goal. That is very vague on what the story is about, but I feel like that is all you need to know to go into this. I have heard like such mixed things about this book. I have heard more negative than positive things about this book, so I was kind of reluctant to go into it, but I did pick this up from Aardvark and I wanted to give it a shot. I needed something short to read at the end of August, so I did pick this up, and I'm so happy that I did because I had such a good time with it. I thought that the story was told in such a like cool way. I loved so many of the themes of this book. I loved just like these simple elements of tarot cards that are sprinkled into this book. I thought that the characters were super well developed, and you really do start caring for these characters a lot. If you are someone who has read from S.T. Gibson before and you are scared to pick this up because you have also heard negative things about it, I would still suggest that you give this a shot because this was definitely a surprise for me, and I ended up giving this one a 4 out of 5 stars as well. Then I read The Year of the Witching by Alexis Henderson. This is a fantasy novel. It has like horror elements mixed into it. It's very like gothic vibes. We are following our main character, Emmanuelle, who gets lured into like the very mysterious woods where she is from. And while in these woods, she acquires the journal of her mother, and she starts reading this journal and starts discovering a lot of her mother's secrets. I feel like I tried to listen to this when it first came out, and I was just really not vibing with the story. I found it very confusing. But when I did pick this up again, I absolutely had such a good time with it. I thought that the story flowed so well. I thought that it was super creepy and atmospheric. I absolutely loved the vibes of this book. If you are looking for like a witchy fantasy that you want to read in and around October and like the fall season, I would 100% recommend this. This gave me all of the fall vibes, all of the Halloween vibes. It was like super witchy. There were some ridiculous moments, so there were definitely some issues with the book. It did get like a little bit cringy near the end, but I still had such a good time with this, and I really enjoyed it. I feel like there was supposed to be another one coming out, but I haven't heard anything about the sequel, but I would 100% pick that up when it comes out, and I ended up giving this one a 4 out of 5 stars as well. Then I picked up Funny Story by Emily Henry. This is a contemporary romance novel where we are following our main character, Daphne. So this does get a little bit confusing. So Daphne was engaged to Peter. Peter then leaves Daphne for his like long childhood best friend, and that childhood best friend was also seeing somebody named Miles. So then Daphne and Miles end up living together as roommates and decide to start like posting pictures together and going on all of these like adventures as both of their partners just just left them for each other. And yeah, that is basically the premise of this book. Emily Henry to me can do no wrong. I absolutely love anything that Emily Henry writes. She has released so many books over the last couple of years. I have pretty much enjoyed all of them. Obviously, there are some that are better than others, but this one definitely ranks in one of my top Emily Henrys. I had such a good time with it. This book had me laughing out loud. The comedy in this book was so funny. There is this one scene that I vividly remember where I was actually laughing out loud, and it involved like him throwing a towel at her face, and I thought it was like the funniest thing ever. Like there were some cringy moments as well. Like during one of the sex scenes, Emily Henry decided to use the word trapezius in the heart of the sex scene, which took me completely out of it. So I found that that was super weird. So I did end up giving this one a 4 out of 5 stars, but I did really enjoy my time reading it. Then I read Scarlet by Marissa Meyer. This is book 2 in the Lunar Chronicles series. I just started reading this series and I have absolutely fallen in love. I think that I actually prefer Scarlet to the first one, Cinder. We are introduced to a few different characters. This pulls elements from Little Red Riding Hood. And yeah, we are still following a lot of characters from the first one. Both of these worlds collide in this book, and I just really enjoyed my time reading this. I had such a fun time with this. I am so excited to continue on with the series, and I ended up giving this one a 4.25 stars out of 5. Then I read Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez. This is again a contemporary romance. Truly, I feel like Abby Jimenez cannot do any wrong in my eyes. This book was so incredible. I loved this romance so much. So in this, we are following our main character, Justin, who makes a Reddit post about a curse that basically has followed him his whole life. Essentially, anytime he dates a woman, when they break up, they immediately find their soulmate. So then our other main character, Emma, replies to this post and says, like, she basically has the exact same thing that's happening, so why don't they date each other to essentially try to break this curse? And yeah, this was just such a fun romance. I was very scared going into it because everybody seems to be absolutely loving this book. So I was really scared to read it because I feel like if I didn't absolutely love this book, I feel like there would be something wrong with me. But I am very happy to announce that I absolutely loved this book. I loved the idea of how our two main characters got together. There is also a lot of really good mental health rep in this book. There is a element of like toxic relationships happening, not between our two main characters, but other people that are in their lives. And I also found that our main character, Emma, her friend was super aggressive at times, but this book was so well done. I absolutely loved it. It is one of my favorite by this author, and I did end up giving this one a 4.25 stars out of 5 as well. Then I read Incidents Around the House by Josh Mallerman. This is a horror book. We are following the perspective of an 8-year-old girl. I don't actually want to tell you too much about this because I find that the less you know, the more creepy it is, but we are following the perspective of an 8-year-old girl who essentially sees an entity that she calls Other Mommy. Now, if you do have the opportunity to listen to the audiobook for this, I would highly recommend doing so. The voice actor that plays this 8-year-old girl does such a good job in telling this story. It is so creepy listening to this. I truly just was so immersed in this story. I was so creeped out by it. The concept alone is terrifying, but then when you actually like hear this voice actor like do the voice of an 8-year-old girl and what is happening and what she can see, and also how her parents have to navigate this, I thought that it was just so creepy. I absolutely loved this book. Again, highly recommend the audiobook, and I ended up giving this one a 4.25 stars out of 5 as well. And finally, the last book I have to talk to you guys about, the best book that I read in the month of August, and that is The Eyes Are the Best Part by Monica Kim. This is a adult horror novel. We are following our main character whose father basically walks out on his family. So she does have a sister and lives with her mother, and their father decides that he is having like an extramarital affair, leaves the family, goes to live with this other woman. So it is our main character navigating her like broken sister and mother and basically just figuring out life. I don't really want to say too much about this book. I knew absolutely nothing about this book going into it, and I absolutely loved that about this book. I really didn't know where this was going. I had no idea where the story was going to take us. I tabbed this book quite a bit. There were so many moments in here where I was saying like, holy shit. And also the ending of this book wrapped up so nicely for me. I really enjoyed my reading experience with this book. If you are looking for a horror book that really makes sense and is easy to follow, I would highly recommend this. But if you do have like a weak stomach and can't really read about eyeballs or like really gross things, I probably wouldn't pick this up, as the descriptions in here were absolutely incredible. I'm so happy that I have this on my shelf, and this was definitely the best book that I read in August, and I ended up giving this a 4.5 stars out of 5. That is it for today's video. Thank you all so much for watching. Let me know down below in the comments what your best book of August was that you read. If you did make it to the end of this video, let me know by leaving an eyeball emoji to represent our best read in August, which was The Eyes Are the Best Part. If you did like today's video, also let me know by hitting the thumbs up like button. And as always, if you are new here, I would love to have you stick around. So please hit that subscribe button, and I will see you guys all in my next one. Bye.